Welcome to the channel. I will never forget that evening. It was around 7 p.m. We were in the hospital, sitting around, sharing laughs and stories with some of the team after a long shift. We were talking about the weird cases of the day, about how unpredictable the human body can be, when suddenly the paramedics' radio crackled with a sharp, dry beep that made us all stop mid-sentence. Code 07, the operator's voice said. That number was enough to change everything. A code 07 isn't just any call. It doesn't necessarily mean the patient is taking their last breath, but it does mean urgent. It means every minute counts. And in medicine, when every minute counts, one mistake, one delay, can mean the difference between life and death. Almost. At the same time, the paramedic, the driver, and I jumped to our feet. We grabbed our gear and ran toward the ambulance. I can still remember the cold air hitting my face as I swung open the back door, almost like the city itself was whispering. Here we go again. We climbed in and asked for more details. The voice over the radio came back quickly. Female patient, 16 years old, severe abdominal pain. At first, I thought, all right, probably something common. But experience has taught me something the hard way. What looks common, rarely, is the clock had just struck 7. Outside, the city was chaos. Rush hour. The streets were jammed with buses packed full of tired workers heading home, cars honking impatiently, food vendors weaving between lanes under the glow of traffic lights. Our driver flipped on the siren, and while many cars tried to move aside, there were always those few who acted like they were racing us, refusing to give way. I sat in the back with the medical kit ready, just repeating to myself, come on, we can't waste time. Thank God, our driver was skilled. After what felt like an eternity, we pulled up to the house. The father was already outside, pacing nervously. The moment he saw the ambulance, he waved his arms desperately and ran to meet us. Please, hurry, he cried, his voice breaking, under the weight of fear and desperation. He led us inside to the living room. There she was, a teenage girl sitting on the floor, her back pressed against the wall. She had both hands clutched to her abdomen, her face pale, her eyes brimming with tears. She could barely get a word out. I knelt beside her. Her breathing was rapid and shallow. Her skin was cold to the touch. Within seconds, we were checking her vitals. Blood pressure dangerously low, pulse racing. Something was very wrong. We placed an IV right there on the floor and began stabilizing her. The physical exam confirmed my fear. This wasn't something we could treat at home. We need to get her to the hospital right now, I said firmly. The father's voice trembled. Doctor, can't you just give her a shot? Something to ease the pain so we don't have to go? I looked him straight in the eye. Sir, your daughter needs tests, equipment, a full team. If we waste time here, she could lose her life. He froze, caught between hope and fear, as if he desperately wanted me to say it was nothing serious. But the mother stepped in immediately. Take her, now, she ordered. We lifted her onto the stretcher and carefully carried her to the ambulance. Her mother climbed in with us without hesitation. The father stayed behind at the door, watching us with that unforgettable look of helplessness, like a man forced to stand still while his world collapsed in front of him. The ride back was brutal. Traffic was worse than before. Several times. I thought we'd crash into a car that wouldn't move out of the way, but our driver, somehow, carved a path through honking horns, red lights, and chaos. We reached the ER. That's when the real race against time began. The team moved quickly. IV lines, blood samples, fluids running. The girl could barely respond, so her mother answered most of the intake questions. And then came the routine question. One of those that seems ordinary, but has the power to ignite storms. Is she on birth control? The nurse asked, almost mechanically. The reaction was immediate. The mother shot up to her feet, offended. How dare you ask that? My daughter is a decent girl. She doesn't use things like that. I stepped in, trying to keep my tone professional but firm. "Ma'am, it's a standard question. It helps us understand what could be happening, but—" She didn't let me finish. She turned to her daughter, who could barely move her lips from the pain. She locked eyes with her, with that piercing gaze only an angry mother can give, and the girl shook her head quickly. Not once, but twice, her eyes full of fear. That was the moment I knew. That look, full of terror, not innocence, was the look of someone trapped, someone desperate to hide something. The air in the room grew heavy. The mother's face burned with anger. The girl's was pale, twisted in pain. And we, stuck in the middle, were fighting to save a life hanging by a thread. I ordered imaging and labs, and soon the results confirmed my suspicion. This wasn't some ordinary stomach pain. It was something far more serious, something that, if left hidden a little longer, would have killed her. The labs came back first. Her hemoglobin was dangerously low. Then the ultrasound showed what we feared. Free fluid in the abdomen. Blood. The gynecologist on call came in, her expression grave. She leaned toward me and whispered, "We need to repeat the pregnancy test." The mother overheard her, and that was it. She exploded. "Again with this nonsense! Enough! She is not pregnant! You people just want to invent stories to steal our money!" I held my ground. "Ma'am, we need to rule it out. Your daughter is in critical condition. The test could guide us to the right treatment." The girl, breathing hard and crying softly, stayed silent. She only gripped her mother's hand tighter, as if begging her not to let go. Minutes later, the result came back. Positive. There was no denying it. We delivered the news gently, with as much care as the moment demanded. "Ma'am, your daughter is pregnant." The silence that followed was suffocating. The mother's eyes burned with fury. "Liars!" she shouted. "You people don't know what you're talking about. This is a third-rate hospital. You just want to drain us for money. Come on, honey, we're leaving. They won't heal you here." She threw herself onto the stretcher, wrapping her arms around her daughter as if her embrace could shield her from reality. Tears rolled down her face as she demanded discharge papers, insisting she'd take her child to a real hospital. It was one of the hardest moments of my career. We all looked at each other, nurses, doctors, helpless. We knew if she left, the girl would likely die. We tried reasoning, calmly explaining that the priority was saving her life. But the mother was blinded by shame, by denial, by fear. And right in the middle of that argument, the girl's body gave out. Her breathing grew shallow, her lips turned blue, her blood pressure plummeted. "She's crashing!" a nurse shouted. That's when the mother's fury dissolved into terror. Her eyes widened, her grip on her daughter trembling. "Please, please save her!" she begged, now clinging to my arm. I looked her dead in the eye. "We need to operate. Now. Your daughter has an ectopic pregnancy. The pregnancy grew outside the uterus, and it has ruptured. She's bleeding inside. If we don't take her to surgery this very minute, she will die." Tears streamed down her face as she nodded frantically. "Do it. Please. Do whatever it takes." We rushed her into the operating room. The surgery was brutal. Blood everywhere. The team worked fast, hands steady despite the urgency. Hours passed before we finally stabilized her. The procedure was successful, but her condition remained fragile, not just physically, but emotionally. When I stepped out, the mother was waiting in the hallway. Her face no longer showed anger, no accusations, just guilt and gratitude. "Thank you, doctor," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't want to believe it. I thought I was protecting her, but I almost lost her." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, because in medicine, sometimes words aren't enough. The girl survived. But that night left a scar on me. A reminder that no matter how painful they are, truths must be spoken. Hiding them can cost a life. That was one of those stories that remind me why medicine is so heavy, so human. We don't just heal bodies. We confront fears, silence, and prejudice, things that can be deadlier than the illness itself. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the surgery, it's making someone listen to the truth. And now I want to ask you, have you ever been in a situation where telling the truth completely changed the outcome, for better or worse? Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. Every week, I'll be sharing more real life, stories from inside the hospital, with all the emotions, struggles, and lessons that come from standing at the edge between life and death. And remember, in medicine, just like in life, the truth always comes out even if it hurts. See you in the next story.